Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're staging a conversation across centuries, a deep dive with two of the greatest strategic minds in history. We're going to see how their ideas connect, where they diverge, and how they mash up to create this incredibly powerful way of thinking about success. So let's start with the big one, the question that keeps leaders and innovators up at night. What does it really mean to be strategic? It's way more than just having a plan. It's a whole different way of thinking and acting when the world around you is complex and constantly shifting. And to help us figure this out, you couldn't ask for two better guides. On one hand, you've got the timeless, almost philosophical wisdom of Sun Tzu, the ancient general whose Art of War is still a must-read. And on the other, the disruptive, totally modern thinking of Colonel John Boyd, the maverick fighter pilot who literally changed the game on decision-making. Here's our game plan. We're going to start with their surprising common ground on purpose, then look at how they read the battlefield. After that, we'll dive headfirst into Boyd's legendary OODA loop, see why they both warn against rigid thinking, and then we'll turn it all back on you. All right, first things first. The most important place where these two thinkers totally agree is that any good strategy has to start with a clear, compelling purpose. This is the bedrock for everything else. For Sun Tzu, this was absolutely fundamental. In the life-or-death world of ancient warfare, purpose wasn't just some nice idea. It was the moral glue that held an army together, making sure they'd fight as one no matter what. And what's wild is that almost 2,500 years later, John Boyd is saying pretty much the exact same thing. He talks about needing a grand ideal, to fire up your own side, yeah, but also to pull in allies and even break your opponent's will to fight.
So here's the big takeaway from this. It doesn't matter if you're leading an army, a startup, or a movement. That unifying purpose, that's your strategic center of gravity. It is the most powerful asset you've got, period.
Okay, so you've got this powerful purpose. What's next? Well, the next critical step is to actually understand the world you're working in. You can't even hope to shape your environment until you can read it properly. Sun Tzu broke this down into two key factors. And what's so fascinating is how perfectly they map onto the very first step of John Boyd's famous framework, observe. For Sun Tzu, landscape was the physical stuff, the terrain, the obstacles, the lay of the land. Climate was everything else, all the dynamic forces swirling around. For us today, think of that as your market, what your competitors are doing, new technologies, social trends, the whole shebang. And that brings us to the engine of modern strategy, Boyd's OODA loop. This whole framework came from his time as a fighter pilot, where a decision made in a split second was literally the difference between living and dying. The loop itself seems almost deceptively simple. Observe, orient, decide, and act. But the real power isn't in the 4 steps. It's in seeing it as a continuous, super fast cycle of learning and then immediately doing something about it. So first, you observe. You're just gathering the raw data, taking in all the information from your surroundings. This is exactly what Sun Tzu meant when he said you have to assess the landscape and the climate before you do anything. Next up is orientation, and Boyd said this was the most critical step of the entire loop. This isn't just about seeing things, it's about making sense of them. It's where you filter everything you've observed through your own experiences and knowledge to build a picture of what's really going on. It's the sense-making part. Okay, so once you have that orientation, that understanding, you then decide on a course of action. You're basically making a bet, a hypothesis about what's going to work. And then, and this is crucial, you act on it. You test that hypothesis in the real world. And this quote right here reveals the true goal of the OODA loop. It's not just about making good decisions, it's about making them faster than your opponent. The idea is to operate so quickly that you get inside their decision cycle, which causes them to get confused, disoriented, and eventually totally paralyzed. So, in a nutshell, running your OODA loop faster than your competition is the modern version of Sun Tzu's ancient wisdom. It's how you engage when the enemy is unprepared or appear in unexpected places. You're literally creating your own momentum. But, and this is a big but, both of these masters give us the same critical warning. Your greatest strength can become your biggest weakness. Success can make you rigid, and that winning formula can quickly become a recipe for disaster. Boyd, in particular, was obsessed with this idea. Sun Tzu saw doctrine as, a set of standard operating procedures. Helpful, but always less important than the actual landscape and climate. Boyd, though, he saw a much deeper danger. The risk that your doctrine becomes dogma, something you can't even question anymore. Boy's warning was that if you aren't constantly and actively challenging your own assumptions, they'll harden like concrete. The very playbook that made you successful yesterday could be the thing that makes you obsolete tomorrow. I mean, he doesn't pull any punches here, does he? His point is that if you're just relying on a single fixed playbook in a world that's always changing, you are guaranteeing your own extinction.
And this leads to such a profound idea. Strategy isn't a static plan that you just create and execute. It's a living, breathing process of creation and destruction. You have to be willing to tear down your own best ideas to make room for something even better.
So, after this whole conversation between two strategic giants, the final and really the most important question is for you. How do you take these powerful ideas and apply them in your own world? This really is the ultimate question for anyone who wants to think strategically. Are you constantly adapting, observing, and reorienting to a changing reality? Or are you just sticking to one doctrine, waiting to become a dinosaur?